Reviving Hyoga is actually very dangerous, but it also makes sense. After all, he is the only one who could perhaps match the man known as Mozo in combat. But even being revived and all that stuff, his creed about changing everything, I mean, wanting to only have effective genes is actually kind of difficult to give. So, well, there are some things here that you don't really know if it's the best thing or ever. But what else can happen now, we don't really know. But for the first time ever, Ibara is actually slowly beginning to panic. And through that panic, it's very likely that he now finally started to make his mistake. First off, with his eye of detail, he actually manages to find out that Ryuzu was the same statue that was petrified that they crushed, as well as also being the statue that was there back then, now before. As Hyoga sees that Mozo is strong, especially as he knocks out Magma in just one punch, and he begins to actually say that who should I side with? The authority destroy the Kingdom of Science or save the Kingdom of Science? The decision is completely in his hand, which makes sense because, well, Senku is not dumb. He knew that could happen. But Ibara is becoming more scared, especially if they can bring people back together. He thinks that they can bring back the head. And that is only half true. The head cannot be revived because his pieces are too corrosive and he misses pieces of his head, so unfortunately he can't be revived. But he is right in guessing that they could put him back together, and so they have managed to do. He is put back together as Ashigeru again wonders what they're gonna do next. He tells to Nikki to do some flirting, but it turns out that she's too pure of a maiden to do that. But Hyoga tells Ashigeru again to shut up because, well, but he doesn't want to kill him because he's efficient. Nor does he really want to kill Nikki because she's efficient. That the fact that he got over things. And Hyoga is the kind of guy who feels like if people are efficient, he won't kill them. He followed Tsukasa's situation. Tsukasa felt like some people should have been cut down because he considered some people to be rotten to the core. But that is something that Hyoga doesn't care about. Hyoga only cares about if people are efficient, then they don't deserve to die. And he considers Senku to be efficient too. He just considered his ideal to save everyone to be Phil. So he begins to ask Mozo a question. Who should you feel like is a selection? The foolish people that keep sleeping or those that should evolve on top of creation? And so he begins to say that we have our own selection happen on this island. Only girls with nice faces are selected and you can have your own harem. Although of course Ryuzu is pointing out that that is so wrong because that is childish. He wants all women. He's even paying attention a little bit to Nikki, although it's not exactly known if you consider that a pretty face. But yeah, she's actually more attractive than she looks. So Hyoga says, does that mean you believe that superior chosen human men are beautiful? And all he says, well, all men should think about women at least. So yeah, I mean, Mozo is all about his dick. He doesn't really care about anything other than that. So Hyoga decides, and what he decides is to side with Senku. And so Kirisame also catches up. And now, and it's now that Ibara screams, invoke the entire island, use it immediately. This seems to suggest that, yes, it is possible to adjust the power of the petrification weapon. And that he knows that. But the thing is that Ibara is... I think Ibara just made his first mistake. He says that use it immediately. He is panicking. And when he's panicking, he does the mistake. And so he tells Senku to dodge as he blocks the spear of Mozo and actually managed to temporarily knock him back. As he begins to clash with the most powerful on the island, Hyoga joins the battle of the Science Kingdom, because after all, the Science Kingdom are all efficient. Oh yeah, and his scars under his mouth mask has healed, but that was what we expected. So yeah, it's basically this. It's just Hyoga choosing the side of Senku and Gam. Hyoga is a complicated person, but also not so much. If people are useful, he will gladly allow them to live. But if they're not useful, then they will not live. And a lot of the Kingdom's Scions are pretty useful people. He just doesn't agree with Senku's plan of reviving everyone. And he doesn't agree with Mosu because in a way Mosu really doesn't care about anything other than girls. Yes, he considers himself the superior human, but other than that, they just have to be the way they have to be, and then they are good enough. For someone like Hyoga, that is not efficient, so I guess it makes sense. But the gang has put back the statue, and they are now running to it all. To stop Kirisame, they can only happen at the head. But Hyoga, though, I wonder. Give me your thoughts if you have any.